What's going on, good people? It's that time of the week, man. I'm feeling amazing today, fellas. How y'all feeling? Reef, I don't really care how you feeling. Charles, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm
Everybody
good.
know you fraud.
Just got back in town, unpacked, washed, and about to repack and catching a flight in the morning. But I'm good, man. Happy to be here and looking forward to the topic.
Yeah. Reef, how you doing?
Good, man. Safe travel. Safe travels, Dr. Cole. Yeah,
Appreciate
doing well, man. Doing well. Like it's almost September. Not that I'd be all into this, but Virgo season is number one. If I was into it, I'm not, but it's still number one season. And fall's my favorite, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful time. So yeah, good to see y'all. Good to see you, Cole.
Yeah. Hey, Chris is joining us. He has some tech issues, but he sent me a text saying that he's gonna come through. And so before we jump into the topic, because I would hate to jump into this topic without him being here, right? Reef, you got something coming up, man. I want you to plug it because you won't be plugging your stuff. You got what you got coming up in November?
Yeah, appreciate the push, man. So yeah, this will be our 5th annual National Black Men Educators Convening, BMEC, hashtag BMEC 2022. You can find information on the Center for Black Educator Development's website. We're excited, man. We, traditionally, we started in 2015, October 1, 2015, bringing Black men together, elevating their voices, perspective, and experiences in the educational systems in their schools. But it's always been open to everybody, and I used to have, women or, other allies say like, oh, well, is it open? It says Black men. I was like, when's the last time you heard from hundreds of Black men educators? They're like, I never did. I only have one, or I don't have any in my school. I'm like, all right, then you need to come listen, So yeah, there's the site. Thank you to our super producer, the real super producer behind the scene, putting this stuff up.
Cap.
Yeah, no, we're excited, man. We used to do regional, and I can tell you why we started the national joint. One of the reasons we were doing these regionals, basically the tri-state area of Philadelphia, PA, Jersey, New York to DC, basically. And then these young men, one Saturday we were having a regional BMEC, and these young men came in, and I was like, where y'all from? They were like, oh, we drove up from Tennessee. We heard y'all were coming together in Britain. We were like, you drove up from Tennessee? They're like, yeah. They were first and second year teachers, man. And after that, we just really started saying like, you know what, let's open it up to folks beyond this tri-state area. And so they were part of the group. And then of course I got to shout out Janice Jones, who had the first inaugural male educators of color at the Department of Ed, with Dr. Khalila Harris, Dr. David Johns, and others who supported that. So those were like the two big inspirations to start Black Male Educator Convening. Chris has shared, he came to our very first one, October 1, 2015, Stuart. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. So excited to jump back in. Black Hands will be part of the part of the agenda. So
now that contract ain't right.
Stop it. Stop it.
Grimy, just grimy. So I'm just glad you always are publicly grimy, so people understand. Yeah, because they think I just be making it up, but you just make it easy.
Bro, listen, I got screenshots for days. Listen, so you two did an anti-America show on Friday. What was that about?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, but your Freedom Friday show.
We did a pro-justice.
All right, so explain it though.
So it wasn't this Friday, it was the Friday before. You're talking about the Haitian Revolution, August 21st. Well, go ahead, Stuart.
No, I mean, we just did a show on the Haitian Revolution. That's it. Very important story, not always told not told thoroughly in schools. So it was a learning experience even for me. First Black colony to free itself, to overthrow the master And in doing so, they scared foreign powers into changing all kinds of rules, because if it could happen in Haiti, it could happen anywhere. So it made big changes. And I think people should go and read the first Haitian Declaration of Independence, because that's what the show was about, and it was really important.
Yeah. So it was pro-justice, not anti-American, although sometimes that might be construed the same. Look at Stewart with all those Karens in the back of his in his background.
They coming for me, man. They coming for me. I gotta run. Get out of here.
Right. I don't know what's happening. Anyways, let's jump into the show, right? So the show tonight is quiet quitting, right? And so it's kind of popped off. I had written something maybe like a week and a half ago about quiet quitting. So basically, to describe it or to define it for you guys, is contracted employees or salaried employees. They're only going to work their 40 hours or work what's in their contract. They're not going to go above and beyond what's in their contract, and anything other than that, they're not doing. And so they have categorized this as quiet quitting. So, fellas, based off of that definition, what are y'all's initial thoughts? Quiet quitting.
Woo! Got so many. Just first of all, let me just start here, because I'm going to be the old man on tonight's show.
I'm glad you waited for him. Tell him, get off your lawn.
I'm just going to say it from the beginning. Let me just say it from the beginning. Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. Damn, kids. Anyway, so let me get that out the way quick first. But I want to start with Dr. Cole.
Okay.
Because here's why I want to start with you, Charles, because this is not rhetorical either. I literally want your feedback on this, right? So quiet quitting as a concept is supposed to mean setting of appropriate workplace boundaries so that you don't do anything more. You don't go above and beyond what you're being asked to do. So in teaching, it's called work to rule. So basically, work to rule means just work to the contract, right? And don't do anything more. So if you're asked to like write letters for kids to get into college or whatnot, don't do any of that stuff, because that's not in your contract, whatever, right? But you know, it's not going to be a surprise to you that I think this is actually just a movement for losers, right? This is just basically bad workers united. Like, this is just like all the worst people you don't want to work with in the workplace forming a movement, saying, you know what, I want to work 2 days a week, and I want to get paid everything, and I want 4 days, blah, 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 whatever. But really what it is, before we get to that part, it's a rejection of hustle culture is what it is. So hustle culture is being denigrated. Like all the Gary V, the productivity lifestyle.
Shout out to Gary.
The Atomic Habits. All Gary V, Atomic Habits, productivity culture, people who do productivity stuff. It's a rejection of all of that. To say all of that is just a hustle of capitalism that's making people want to do more. And Charles, you had this thing where you would say, what's the thing you say about like work your 9 to 5?
Yeah.
And then work.
So your 9 to 5
hustle culture. Defend hustle culture. Please.
I mean, I don't know if I gotta defend it, and I'll defend Gary first, because Gary did look out for me.
And say who is Gary?
Gary Vaynerchuk is a very popular ad man. A lot of commercials you see on TV is done by Gary V's organization, but he came up around a time that Facebook and they all like know each other. But he talks about people that when people ask him what they can do, he tells them stuff, and then it's turned into hustle culture. But the first thing Gary says is, if you good with your job, if you good with where you are, if you're happy, then you don't do none of this stuff. But if you're saying you unhappy, here's some things you can do. So I want to defend homie there. I think here's the thing. I was looking at this, not necessarily in the education sense, but just like, okay, I'm gonna work. It's really the duties as assigned thing that people kind of got an issue with. And when I say hustle culture, my thing has always been, look, your 9 to 5 pays your bills, right? Like, I grew up homeless, so I ain't got to be fully in love with my 9 to 5. But in my 5 to 9 is where I invested in myself. Is where I wrote my company and on little napkins and trained myself and taught myself the internet and taught myself how to use video cameras and stuff. And I invested in myself. Now, here's the thing. I actually am okay with a lot of people feeling like this on this quiet quitting thing, because for people like me, we gonna win. Like, if you want to just stop at the bare minimum,
say it.
I think that's cool. Like, listen, if you happy with where you are and you want to leave it at the job, hey man, God bless you. But again, from how I grew up, from what my circumstances were, I was like, that I'm good off of that. But I was always the person that when the boss said, hey, you can talk to me about anything, I was the one that stepped into that office and tried to talk about what my future needed to be, where I needed to improve. Like I understood that I was working under somebody else's like organization and I was in control of my output. You know what I mean? So I wanted to learn every aspect of those jobs, take a piece of it and build my own. And I did. So, I mean, what other people do, what other adults do, Chris, that's them other adults' business. I try not to. The fastest way you can kill yourself in this country is being concerned with what other free grown people are doing. What you need to figure out is how is it going to affect you and how can you insulate yourself in that? So when we talk about it from an education standpoint, I got some different thoughts, but the general Gen Z-ness of it all, hey man, if I'm gonna just say this, I know I'm going a little long, Ray, but I'll stop after this. I'll give you an example. Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving. You feel me?
Why does it always come back to Ben? What's wrong with Ben?
I'm gonna tell you why. Because Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving, the NBA has one of the best structures of who gets paid. The NFL does not have guaranteed money the way the NBA does. So you got these two people that decide to sit out. You got these two people that decide to, say, I got a family emergency, but then Kyrie was in the club that night, right? You can do all that stuff, but guess what? Collective bargaining is coming up. And there are reactions and there are consequences to these type of things. So it's going to be real interesting. If you think that this stuff is just going to go unchecked and like these bosses and these people running these companies ain't going to have a reaction, you wilding. Shit is going to change and contracts are going to be, they're going to be written up differently. So God bless and Godspeed. But hey, I don't have no issue with your right to do it. And if you just don't have a job later on, then hey, man, that's between you and that boss.
Reef, jump in here, man, because you initially thought it was something else. So tell the folks what you thought it was and then answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, I thought initially quiet quitting was folks who quit and don't put in kind of what you talk about every year is like, yo, hey, teachers, don't quit a week before school's supposed to start and kids are showing up, right? So that's what I thought was like not giving notice, not thinking about, your colleagues or the children that are supposed to be serving, particularly in the educational system. So that's what I thought it was initially, like just kind of quitting and sneaking out the back door. But then when I read, it's like, and I saw two variances, right? Like some of it is like literally quitting on the job and just not, not
right.
Like I quit, but I'm here, like kind of lamed up politician stuff, right? Like, oh, I'm leaving in a year or 2 years and I can't be reelected. So I'm just going to sit here and take up a spot. I'm going to just be a blob. And then I saw others that were talking, blob, just like I'm just blocking, I'm not working, and then I saw other explanations about like, hey, you know what? Like they're trying to overwork us, they undervalue us, they don't respect us, and they're trying to get us to do over and beyond. I would say it's not new, even though it's like this sophisticated name for it right now. I think they're always labeling stuff. Back then it varied from lazy to kind of work-life cycle, whatever it was. But I remember the union lead at the school when I was teaching. I used to have lunch with my kids. So that's above and beyond.
Yeah.
The contract or whatever. But I enjoyed it. Like that was my thing. They would actually say like, hey, which could, I have 4 or 5 different groups of kids. And each day I would eat lunch. I would just bring my lunch down and just, chop it up with them at the, in the lunchroom. And I remember the union person giving me grief, telling me not to do that because then they're going to expect everybody to do. I'm like, they're not going to expect everybody to do this. This is something that I want to do. And she was like putting so much pressure on me to not do it. And I just never understood that. Right. And to me, that's like very similar, the same thing. They didn't call it. They didn't have a name. Everything got a name now. Every name changes and all this kind of stuff. And then I remember this other boy, he was the gym teacher. He would just throw out jump ropes and basketballs. We had this beautiful gym. We had a swimming pool. He would throw out basketballs and jump ropes. And then one day I was just like, yo, and I'm still a teacher, mind you. I'm like, yo, man, like you have this amazing opportunity, like, the standards and health and PE, blah, blah. He was like, I'm retiring in 4 years. You're trying to get me to work. That's the exact quote, bro. So that's the same thing. Same thing. Like, I'm going to retire in 4 years and you're trying to get me to work. And I was just like dumbfounded because I was naive. I thought everybody like just had this passion and purpose the way I did. So I was just like, I was stuck on stupid. I couldn't believe he said that. but that was his philosophy, right? And so it's not new.
And
I get the nuance of it. There's a lot of oppressive, almost regimes in the workplaces too, who don't respect their, the team that actually is carrying the stuff. So there's some nuance there too.
I think that's important to name, and I think it's important to name the nuance. Thank you for doing that. And so, Chris and Reef and Charles, you guys all run your own businesses, so you have employees or 1099s or whoever you have, right? You got folks reporting to you. And so, I guess my question to you is: if you have somebody that's quiet quitting on the job, what does that mean for the promotion track? Like, how does that work? How does that work in terms of like upward trajectory? Like, what's happening? Like,
let me first say this. Let me say this.
I was not expecting that question.
Me either. It's like a crazy question. Like, with all this loser culture and stuff, how's somebody gonna win? This is one thing. First of all, we have made the worker and the employee noble in all cases. We talk about workers as if they are blameless and exploited and the oppressed constantly. But what we don't ever do is talk to managers, shift leaders, people who have to pick up other people's shifts when they call in 5 minutes before they're supposed to be there high. Oh yeah, I was supposed to come in today, but I'm high. So talk to retail managers, talk to fast food managers, talk to any group of managers, and you will see that their stories aren't being told. Like the story of the employer is not being told. And we have made workers noble as hell. Like they just perfect. Oh my God, they just deserve everything, right? Like, and we done beat up Amazon and we beat up Starbucks and we'll beat up. Everybody just needs a union, right? So that the employees the next day can go on strike and ruin the business and kill everything because they don't want to work, right? Now, I'm just gonna say things tonight that people don't want to say. A lot of y'all are not good. A lot of y'all not good employees, right? We talk about 5-15, fight for 15, fight for 15. Some of y'all ain't $15 people, right? I'm just sorry. Some of you just
don't do that.
I'm just gonna put it in there, right? And you know what? Some of y'all
deserves to live.
Everybody deserves to live, but not everybody deserves to live on somebody else's. Listen, when you don't show up for work, now, what Charles said to me struck me as like resonant in this one way, because when I was an employee myself in food service, the way that I moved up constantly was taking lazy people's shifts. I literally would tell other people, before you call in, call me first and let me know that you're telling them that you're going to call in so that I could be ready for that shift, whatever shift it was. Now, because I would show up for any shift, anytime, you asked about the promotion track, Ray, right? Like, it wasn't a big promotion, $3.45 to $5, right? Like $5 to $5.50, whatever. But I learned that if you are that hustler, there are a lot of losers on the job. So just eat the loser's lunch constantly, and that's all you got to do, right? But now what we're doing is unionizing the losers, and they're running the whole business. Ask shift leaders, ask managers, ask employers. Employees are asking for some downright stupid things. It's ruining schools. It's ruining charter schools. It's ruining advocacy organizations. It's ruining nonprofits. It's ruining whole ass restaurant chains. There are places where you go to 3 different Chipotle and have like blue-black guacamole with a 14-year-old standing behind there with trash all over the place, stuff all messed up, whatnot. Civilization is falling. I don't mean to be dramatic. But bad workers are killing America. You killing everything. I can't even get a burrito made the right way anymore. Folding it all the wrong direction, having it pop open in the middle. What's wrong with y'all? Right? I asked for extra guac and you put a little thimble on top. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You got to make change. All hell breaks loose. Anyways, get off my lawn.
I knew this was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen.
Started super early, right?
Hey, and I'm excited about it. It started before 40 minutes, so I'm good. So Reef, upward trajectory for you, man. How are you coaching these people out? How are you firing them loudly if this happens on your watch?
I mean, you know what? I don't even know if it's firing. I think it really depends on like what's happening, right? Like if I can totally respect, people trying to figure out, okay, I need to have a buffer. I need to have a balance, some type of cycle in my life, right? Like as a principal, I used to get like really anxious about work-life balance because some of these 21-year-olds used to literally think, well, I work at 9 hours. That means I need to rest 9 hours. I'm like, that's not how life is. You know what I mean? Like they literally, and I was just like, that's not reality. You know, I was like, it's really like trying to find your rhythm and finding something that you enjoy every single day and to doing, and you're making spaces. But I remember one time we had people, it was very few folks in this school that had families, you know, and I was one of them. I had a bunch of kids, right? Like, and I get, you know, fatherhood, motherhood, blah, 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 you know, all the things. But there were some women who were saying like, well, I don't know if I can do this job and have a family. And I was just like, people have done it for like, what do you mean? Like, of course you can. I was like, when you have a child, you will rearrange. You can't think about it because you don't have one, so you're not in that reality. But they were literally thinking like, oh, I can't do this with a family. Then they started seeing like, oh, I actually can, and I readjust. I might not take on as much leadership, but because we're a community, I've developed somebody else to do the leadership, right? And I remember when I was coming up, they used to, you know, my coaches, and so they were like, hey, I'll throw the football as far as you like. You know, there's always opportunities, particularly if you're in education or that type of service. There's never enough funding to get everything done, and you know your kids deserve more. So you could say like, well, I ain't doing that, but we always, I don't know, it just always felt like if you were serving communities and children, you were going to do some extra stuff that wasn't necessarily lined out. And often the beautiful part, if people have passion and purpose, it wasn't me telling them, they were creating it. Sometimes I had to tell folks like, you know, they were coming up with the ideas like, you know what, this will serve the children better if I do this. But that was the same thing. I was taking kids to football games on Saturdays because I just wanted to do it. I love the kids being exposed and having opportunity and having the buses and taking them up to Temple to watch Miami back in the day, come up and play. Like that was, to me, it was part of my passion and purpose. And I get if people don't want to do that, because that was a Saturday. And I didn't even think about it as like, oh, this is extra and the bosses and all of that. That never even crossed my mind. And so I would just say like, people have to, you know, do what they feel is best for them, their health, their family, their situations. But having this whole thing like, yeah, we're going to do this I just don't get that. I think too many people are sheep. First of all, they just follow each other all the time. It's annoying. Like I like it just seemed like people become more and more, you know, recruited into sheepdom, and that's the piece that I just like. It's annoying. Like, yo, be it like, you know, just be it. I don't know.
Charles,
that part is annoying.
Charles, before we pivot into K-12, anything that they said resonated for you?
I mean, I would just say on this, I mean, I think it's one of them right versus real conversations again. We all know what the right thing to say is. I actually appreciate Chris being honest and speaking his truth on it. I think that, like, I don't have to agree with every part of it, but I think career matters, right? Like, listen, if we're talking about you count tickets at the A's game and you know what I'm saying, you just like, all right, whatever, I'm this all I'm gonna do and I'm gonna go home, then God bless you. But if you a surgeon, you can't be in the middle of a 10-hour surgery and be like, well, time is up in this thing. I'm about to peace out. Like, I think context matters. And I also think somebody's put this in there about good workers versus poor workers. Let's be very, and I mean poor as bad workers, not like poor financially. I promise you, if you are one of the best employees, if you are really good at your job, at what you do, and you go to your boss and be like, man, I'm just a little stressed. I'm a little this, I'm that. I promise you a good boss is going to be like, well, let's figure that out. Let's you want to go work out more? You want to go do this? Like they'll build that in. I think one of the reasons why this caused so much fire is there's a lot of people that are really bad at their job and don't want to work. Like both of them things can't be happening. And so like you can't be both. And so as somebody who runs a business, I love 1099s. I love them because here's the thing. When I pay somebody a salary, I don't hear nobody complaining when it's quiet time, when it's a slow time and you ain't doing as much work. And then sometimes we got to get a report in. We got to get a grant in. And sometimes we writing that thing till 11 o'clock, right? If you're not giving me money back when I'm letting you go at 5, you know what I'm saying? Like after working 4 or 5 hours, then you got to take the good with the bad in that. But listen, again, people are grown. If that's the decision that you're going to make it, do what you need to do to, like, you don't have to make these big proclamations of I'm doing this thing. Just do it. Just do it. Like, because like Sharif said, a lot of people are sheeps and they looking for support. They looking for this subculture thing so they can feel like, you know, good about doing it. But hey, man, I've lived in shelters before. You can have fun with that if you want. I'm good. So
yeah, I guess kind of the
part.
Yeah, thank you for adding that, bro. I appreciate that. All right, so I think what resonated for me, Charles, when you said right versus real, right? And so I'm thinking about COVID and how COVID may have like exasperated like a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now, because when you made this pivot, when folks made this pivot to being able to work from home, right? It's like, you know, there are a lot of things that you do or a lot of comforts that you have from working from home that you don't necessarily have in terms of like going into the office, right? You don't have that commute. You don't have, you know, you're not dealing with your colleagues day to day in that sense. You know, it's a lot of comfort that you have from working from your own house, right? And so now that these companies are starting to ask people to come back into work, you're starting to get this whole like, you know, quiet quitting piece or whatever, right? And so, you know, I think more things will come out. Right, but let me pivot this to K-12, and so in thinking about this from the aspect of K-12, right? So I think about Black and brown kids as what I think about. It's my passion. It's what I'm passionate about, right? And so, you know, a lot of our neighborhoods in the inner city are historically marginalized. They're not really good outcomes in terms of like thinking about it educationally. When you think about the folks that get teaching jobs in the inner city, they're usually newer teachers, not the veteran teachers. And they're usually folks that really don't want to be in the inner city teaching, right? I won't say that as a writ large, but I will say that based off of my lived experience, that the opportunities that the first opportunity that folks have to leave those inner city jobs, they do, right? And go into the suburbs, right? And so when I think about unions and I think about teachers unions from being in Baltimore City Public Schools, being a union rep, I feel like it's ordained for folks to quiet quit, right? It's like, yo, you're taught, just like Reef was saying, like you're taught, like you do what's in your contract. You don't do anything above and beyond from what's in your contract or whatever, because if you do, then you're making your colleagues look bad. You're making other union members look bad, you know, so that's not what we're here for. But I could never swallow that pill because I know that I was there for the kids, right? So like if I'm there for the kids, then I'm gonna do whatever I can, whenever I can, to make sure that those kids have what they need. I think that teaching is a calling, and so not calling on the contract is not the calling, right? And so just wanted to get y'all's thoughts in terms of like, you know, education in the inner city and folks having to go above and beyond. What are y'all's thoughts?
I mean, I would just say, like, you know, again, it's a balance, right? Like, I don't think people's passion should be taken advantage of. Like, I'm like really adamant about that too. So just the same way I come hard, I also see like, you know, like, yo, these conditions, these work, and I'm not talking about like, you know, like, oh, the state budget, so how does it hit the school? No, I'm talking about you as a principal, you as a school leadership team, you as a grade or content team lead. There are things you could do differently. From the central office, there are things that you can do differently to make sure that people are respected, right? Like you can't respect kids if you can't respect those who are closest in proximity to the kids, right? Because that doesn't make sense. Like we have too many people who are in, you know, far away from kids, like, yeah, I love the kids, I'm here for the kids. And then how do you skip over the ones who are serving the kids directly, both with accountability and support? How do you do that, right? And it comes in a lot of different ways. So that's my thing, is like you have to, as a leader, as a aspiring leader, you have to make sure that the servant leadership ain't just about the teacher and the student, right? Because a lot of times we talk about servant leadership, we're talking about, oh, the teacher. Like no, whoever is supervising, supporting the teacher should also have a servant leadership orientation. And I think sometimes like that gets, you know, removed from the equation. And it's all about like, what's the teacher specifically doing, which is important, but so is, you know, second most important, you know, or impactful, according to data and research, after the teacher inside a school is the principal. Right. And if they can't realize that, because it's their impact on the teachers, if they can't realize that, then it's going to be chaos. And you're going to have people who are forming resentment, because we often talk about school culture, right? School culture ain't just about like what kids are doing. It's 90% what the adults are doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think this K-12 piece is really interesting, because if for this conversation, a few things, like one, I don't think we want to be teaching our kids to do the minimum. I think we do Like when I hear Charles say, like, I grew up in shelters and that this Charles knows my story too. We all know a little bit of each other's story. If there wasn't a bit of us about striving and about not wanting to stay where we were at, wanting to move on to the next thing, then we would have gotten stuck at some point, right? Like, so this do the bare minimum thing would have never served us well. So I don't want to teach our kids that. First of all, just get rid of that as an idea. Let indulgent, privileged people teach their kids that this is okay, knowing that they have all the privilege in the world to fall back on. And honestly, that's a lot of who this is, to be very honest with you. I'm making jokes about this being like, food workers and whatnot, but this is very much a middle class thing. I just want to be very real about it. Lots of people with a lot of privilege doing this. And it's because they know they can fall back on something, right? They got the tattoos and the nose rings and the little stuff going on in their affect and whatnot, and the quiet quitting and blah, blah, blah. It's all cool. It's all sweet and beautiful, but they know they got some privilege to fall back on, right? So I would never want to teach our kids this, that. That's the first thing. Second thing, I want to challenge you, Raymond, on something that you said with your anti-teacher ass. So listen, I just want to be clear about the fact that I don't agree that all the teachers in urban settings and urban districts, first of all, are new, because it's just not true. A lot of those teachers, there's a high seniority in a lot of urban districts, and a lot of the new teachers go to charter schools. A lot of the young teachers.
Where are the charter schools, Chris? Where are the charter schools?
You have whole ass charter schools that are filled with the new teachers, and sometimes those are good new, like, Sprite and energetic. Sometimes they're the ones that are going to be quiet quitting, trying to unionize a charter school 3 weeks later. Meanwhile, in districts like Chicago and other places, you do have a lot of teachers in urban districts that can teach their asses off, right? Old, veteran, Black teachers, white teachers, whatever, been around for a minute, in Philly, in Chicago, in Baltimore, whatever. And they can teach circles around some of the suburban teachers where, you moved your family out to the suburbs thinking Jerome's going to get a better deal out there. And
why you got to be Jerome?
It just came to mind, bro. It just came to mind. I don't know what it is, but I'm just saying, I just wanted to challenge that. Like, they haven't quit yet. They are still showing up in some gritty circumstances for 30, 40 years, teaching heathens. But I just want to be real with you. Everybody else has quietly quit. That's where we turn this on its head. You look at a school like that where you do have some veteran educators teaching kids every day who can get the job done, but they're on their own. That principal and those teachers, the mayor has quietly quit. Their senators have quietly quit. Their governors have quietly quit on being responsible for them in their schools and being responsible for making sure they have everything that they need. And in some cases, they need more, and everybody has quietly quit for getting them the more that they need, including some of the parents. See, we got this job. We keep making everybody noble. All the workers are noble. All the underclass is noble. Everybody in the hood is noble. Just being poor makes you noble. Just being a parent makes you noble. Man, listen, sometimes that educator in the front of the room is the only one who hasn't quietly quit on some of these kids. And everybody else, from the president on down to a parent, has quietly quit on that kid.
Right. Absolutely. Especially if you're talking about K-12, especially if you're talking about, think about the Black male teachers in these schools, and they just constantly get the black kids that's having behavior issues sent to their classroom, right? Like this is stuff this ain't speculation. This is stuff I saw in the district. I saw a bunch of folks that was doing the bare minimum and kind of getting by, or setting up certain educators to fail, and they felt overwhelmed, and then they didn't get the numbers that they needed, and they ended up getting pushed out. But I mean, again, when we talk about K-12, listen, I can't control what adults do. I do think that the type of standard that you set from the offset is important. And a lot of schools, when you look in a school, does that school have standards? Does that district have standards? Because here's the thing. Go to DHL, and if you're supposed to make X amount of deliveries in X amount of time, and you miss those deliveries over 2 week period, you out of that thing. You know what I'm saying? I think this is what's going to happen. This is going to be one of those repercussions that I think people not really thinking about. You're going to start seeing time audits, yo. How long did it take you to do that thing? How long should it take you to do that thing? If I hire somebody and you charging me per hour, and then you only did this thing that I know it only take 3 hours, but you said it took you 20, guess what? You're not getting re-upped, yo. And I mean, you could say that like it's capitalism and this, that, and the third. There might be some truth in all that. I think it's a case-by-case thing.
I was just about to yell capitalism.
Yeah, but here's the thing. For K-12, if you got a kid in that system, you need to go and do an inventory and see what's going on and have an understanding of, you can look in the schools and see what schools got a high standard for themselves and which ones don't. This is where I'm talking to parents and people that love these kids or whatnot, and some of our older students. You got to know what you're working with. And if that's what you're working with, I'm just telling you, I can't control what that adult does, but you got some control over what you do in your house. You got some control over the after school programs you put your kids in. I'm not talking about what's right, because we're going to live in la la land. I'm talking about survival for you, though, and making sure your kids get the quality that they need, because this quiet quitting shit might be popular now. That shit been happening in education. Like, right to rule has been a thing.
I feel like I said that, but thank you for.
Oh, look, I just want to just sticking with that DHL
joint. You didn't. What'd you say? Go ahead, Reef.
No, I was just saying, sticking with that DHL joint. Don't come time audit me if I got to keep changing the tire, because you ain't never want to get this daggone truck inspected and taken care of. Right? Like, don't come and then like, oh, how long and why didn't, and just like, yo, bro, why stop skimping and get this daggone truck fixed so I can get, make an efficient delivery, right? And so let's not, again, I just want to, every time we talk, I want to dovetail it with some of this just ridiculousness that goes on from, because and I agree with Chris, no group of people just automatically should assume the mantle of nobility. And I think that's also goes for managers. Like, how many people do we know that are just incompetent in their managerial skills, in their leadership skills? And it's just an assumption that everybody is just going to look. It's more, whatever that boy's name off the office, it's more boys like that. Michael Scott, boss Michael Scott. It's more Michael Scotts out there than we like to imagine. I think that's probably I don't even want to say a percentage, but it's a significant number of folks.
But you know what? Y'all problem in education is the same problem that police officers have and a lot of professions have.
Don't do us that,
bro. You're an educator too.
Don't do that.
I'm a lay educator. I'm a lay educator, right? And here's the thing. I feel like good workers are terribly scared of calling out bad workers. And I think great teachers hate to admit that there's such thing as colleagues that aren't doing their work. They say stuff like teachers just, and then they fill in the blank with something positive, meaning all teachers want this positive thing. If you're the son of a police officer, you might do the same with police officers. Well, listen, police officers just have a tough job and they just want to blah, blah, blah. No one is willing to admit and call out the fact that in their midst there are people that quit their jobs years ago but keep showing up, right? So there is an educator tomorrow who's going into class to do her business or his business right next to some other folks who they know for a fact are not really, like, shouldn't be in that classroom, shouldn't be doing that thing. Same thing with the police officer. There are judges that know this about other judges or whatnot. When you don't, social workers, like, go nonprofit leaders, right? Yeah. Like, we could do a whole show on nonprofit leaders and workers.
Yep, y'all could do that.
And I just want to do a commercial right now. Commercial for a lot of y'all in nonprofit, with your juicy. Your juicy bottom
Jesus, he needs full screen.
Sweats.
Juicy couture. Wait, no. Stop. Juicy couture. Juicy couture.
Juicy, whatever sweats you be wearing to work. Don't want to be on camera. Having a bad hair day. Want 6 months of vacation. Blah blah blah. Want the world and moon, earth, stars, and whatnot. Because you in nonprofit work. Take that to for-profit land and see what happens to your ass real quick, right? And as a nonprofit leader, I can talk about nonprofit leaders, right, who have a great PowerPoint and they send their funders amazing reports and PowerPoints, but the work is crap, right? Like, it's crap. And I just want to be real with you. We don't do this. We don't call each other to a standard, right?
Chris, I think you make a good point. And there's research out there that shows the thing that zaps high-performing teachers, like motivation, energy, the most is the lack of accountability for that person next door to them, that they know that they actually cringe when it's time to switch and their kids have to go to someone, or worse, when their kids are coming from someone, like, just as parents get anxiety about who's teaching my kid this fall, guess what? It's a whole lot of teachers who are also like, yo, they're coming from so-and-so's class. Like, man, that's I'm gonna have to. I'm literally game planning
exactly
to mitigate what I know with certainty, what I witnessed, what I saw, next door to me or down the
Yeah.
floor, what I had to pass, right? Like that is, and I think that again, it goes back to leadership, right? Because ignoring that and just pretending, because it's not just teachers who may say something, there's a whole lot of scared administrators who don't call things out, won't coach out, won't coach up, won't do anything. It's just like, as you said, you know, a nonprofit.
Hey, sometimes they can't, though, Sharif. Sometimes they can't. I've
can't
had,
what? Can't say? Can't say?
Yes, there are.
They should get out.
There's been rules in Oakland before that has prevented the way that a
Since
principal.
when everybody want to follow
I'm
rules?
just telling you, man. Listen,
rules.
I've been with principals. Jamoke can attest to this, where they had to train parents how to properly complain so that they could actually discipline their educators.
I'm not saying yes, you're talking about like going through this. Yes, there are some things where one arm is shackled to the opposite foot. That ain't shackled to your daggone lips. Open your daggone mouth and say something. And if you get slapped on the wrist, it was for kids. So what?
There you go. There you go. I agree with you. I don't disagree with you.
I agree with you. Like, you can't necessarily fire someone, and a lot of, depending on what the collective bargaining agreement is, but you should still be able to fix your lips to say,
absolutely,
this ain't right.
Yeah, but my bringing the conversation back, because I don't know where Chris just went. I
thought that was all very relevant. That's not where
Chris is out here choosing violence. He's been choosing violence ever since he came on air.
Wow. Why it's about me? First of all, let me just say this. I agree with what Charles was just saying, that the rules are set up in a way that actually mitigates. Like not everybody is super courageous. Let's just put it that way. So you do want to set up a system so the least courageous people still can have a voice when they see something that's wrong, right? And if the rules make it burdensome, only your barn burners are going to be the ones jumping out front saying things a lot of times, and they're going to leave the system. Your barn burners are going to be the first one. The ones who are the most kind of like whatever, those are going to be the first to go. And listen, I'm not picking on any one profession. I think I'm naming all of them. I'm naming this as a thing. People are uncomfortable. Good workers in any field are not prone to call out bad workers because they think it makes their field look bad. Whether that's teaching or nonprofits or whatever, you pick a field, right? They just don't want to demean the field that way. But when you're talking about service to people, like to children, to families, like Charles mentioned, social workers, whatever, all these systems that our people are in, you have to be willing to call out when people are falling short. Like when they have quit, they're collecting that check, but they keep coming every day and lives are on the line.
Yeah. Chris, I just want to give and I agree with you, and I agree with what Cole said. I just want to give another example, though, where sometimes it's not the system. So in Philly, this was years ago, they had an opportunity there was a loophole or something. Something was going on with the contract where principals were able to not do LIFO, last in, first out. They were actually able to keep the best teachers, even if that was a junior teacher. Right. And guess what? Less than 10% actually did it. And then someone gave me the number at one time. It was like such a ridiculous. I was like, no, you can't be right. Like there was such a small number of principals that actually did it. So even when the system was like, okay, people complain about, life. Oh, I wanted to keep that person. All right, here's the situation. Like, I'm not going to do it. So it wasn't the system. It was actually fear, because they were like, well, how am I going to lead next year if people are mad at me? It's just like, yo, like
that's the pool, Sharif.
But
that's
so
the pool. They got the freedom.
They
got the freedom, and then they figured out that the pool was dirty.
Bro,
there wasn't as many stars as they thought they were in the pool. Oh, if you gave me the freedom to hire, go ahead, Ray.
Right. All I know is across 3 schools, we just always found top talent who were there, who were dedicated, who were amazing. Not to say 100%, but like that was the culture, like culture of achievement, culture of collective work responsibility and accountability. Like there's just no excuse not to create that type of environment, or at least strive. Like just do something. Don't be a blob. Yeah. Do something.
So as a born burner, as someone that came in to do a school turnaround, and someone that had to find
the best job in the world,
help other people find other places to be that were not necessarily in the interest of Black and brown kids. There's a lot of stress and strife that comes with that. You got to be built for that. in terms of like coming with the backlash, right? Like we are together right now as a podcast because of some of the backlash that I received with regards to making those decisions that were in the best interest of students, right? Like Chris found me, and we found each other because of my willingness to burn the barn down, right? But not everybody's going to do that, and not everybody has a village that's committed to them, like how you guys are committed, how we're committed to each other in terms of making sure that we are standing together in order to do what's right for kids, right? Now everybody wants to do what's right for students.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. I mean, it is. Yeah, we used to say, "Don't blink, don't blink."
But we got to stop the loser worker population situation from gaining strength. I'm sorry.
If you choosing a job that requires greatness, listen, man. If you choose a job that requires greatness and that's how you express yourself and say, "I'm great at this. I want to be great. I love these people. I love this. I love that." Then sometimes that stuff can't be contained to 9 to 5. Now, if you're doing something and somebody might argue that they need to be great in this, but let's say McDonald's and you flipping burgers, but it's like operationalized and like somebody else can step in and do it. Again, I'm sure there's some great people that do it, but like, okay, you don't have to do that. But if when I was a social worker and like that week that you was on call, you got to be on call all week. You can't drink that week because you might get a call at 1 a.m. If you can't, you can't just be like, well, I ain't doing that.
Why don't they go back to I can't drink?
Right. Well, you can't. Well, so you got to have a pager on you, and you can't have no alcohol. Like, you know what I'm saying? If the pager go off, like, but again, like if you dealing with a baby that needs to be taken from somewhere and safety and things like that, it depends on career and it depends on greatness. If that's what the job requires. And again, man, if that's not what you want to do as an adult, as a full red-blooded adult with autonomy and agency, you can go find some other things to do. But here's the reason why this is an issue. And we saying that, let's say the quiet thing out loud. Because a lot of times nonprofit stuff or certain type of school environments are easier to work at because we don't actually require a lot from you. Because when we try to hold you accountable, we can get the internet to go against you and call you fascist and all that when they ain't got no type of, they don't know what's happening. And guess what? As a boss, you can't never talk about what happened. You will get sued.
Absolutely not.
They can say whatever they want to say.
Absolutely true.
You get what I'm saying? And again, if you work with me and for me, you don't have to love my organization the way I love it because I built it with blood and sweat or whatever. But you do have to have a modicum of respect for what we're doing. And if you don't, then I have to figure out a way to get you up out of here. And guess what? But I have insurance. So if you sue me, then we just gonna have to let the legal play out the way it's gonna play out. I mean, but that's the real conversation, man. If you don't want a job that where it requires some extra of you at times, like then you need to do something else. But if you're gonna be this loud, I just want to get this last part off, Ray. If you're gonna be this loud when you are uncomfortable, then when you making the organization uncomfortable, get some money back. When you get that month vacation, when they make up a day to let you off, when they give you all these other things, or it ain't that much work, but we paying you for the whole day, or we taking you on vacation, be like, no, I didn't deserve this, right? Like that's not how it goes, and we only talk about one side of that.
Yeah. So I think another twist to this conversation, right, to add a little bit more nuance to it, and I'm gonna shout out one of our listeners right now.
Nuance, I love it.
Keisha Lamb. She kind of pushed me on this when I was talking about it on LinkedIn. And so we're talking about like minoritized women, right? And like the trauma that they may feel being in work environments that are majority white, right? Or not even just minoritized people, period, right? Being in an environment with like mainly white folks or whatever, and the trauma that's associated with that, right? And so quiet quitting being like a safety net in terms of like, you know, not killing yourself at these jobs that don't give a shit about you. Like, what's our thoughts on that? Is there anything different in terms of like how we're thinking, or like is that the same thing that we're talking about?
I mean, I'll just say I do agree with you on the point. You know, it's one of the things I just jotted down. You know, I think sometimes these organizations, they know that we have this thing like they know that we have to work twice as hard to get half as far, and they're like, yeah, we're going to keep engineering it that way. Right. And at what point do we say, like, you know what, we're not going to anymore? And can you do it? Right. Because back to that, do I actually have the ability to take care of my family and not work twice as hard to get as half as far? Right. Because then they'll be like, oh, yeah, you got to go because you're not, when it's really, I'm already working double the amount of the people that look like you, the people that you have relationship with, the people you're hanging out at the bar with, the people that you're actually inviting to your cookout. I'm already doing all that extra. But as soon as I say, you know what, I got to pull back, then you're like, You know, then it's the tropes. Oh, look at the lazy, person of color. Look at the lazy woman, right? Like, so I do think that's not even just nuance. This is like a really hard, cold reality that is part of this whole, conversation. So 100%, I agree. I forget who you said that.
Keisha Lamb.
Keisha Lamb, yeah. So I agree.
Well, I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
think
they know it, and they keep trying to engineer it that way, maintain that engineering.
Yeah, man.
so.
I mean, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just gonna say I have started 3 organizations. I'm on my 45th, 46th job in my life, of all the jobs I've had in my life.
That's wild. I'm gonna count mine one day.
A lot
That's
of those,
wild.
you guys should add them up, and you
Yeah.
should ask yourself, what's the worst job you ever had,
Oh,
and
that
what
one is easy.
and what
That's
was
where I was
worse
going.
about it, and whatever, like think about how you did on that. But all my first jobs were worst jobs. Like my first jobs were worst jobs. I had a whole career in it, and then I had a career in mid-leveling, like just like still crap, but just better than the other crap that I had before. And when I eventually got into mission work, like work that I was passionate about, like waking up every day, I knew the difference. Like the last bad job that I had versus the first job I had, where I woke up every day enjoying, loving that I was helping people, doing what I was doing, the psychic transition was huge. Like in that 1 year, I went from one person to another person, and I was making half as much. I took a pay cut to take a job in social services, but I woke up every day with that pay cut. I woke up every day though happy as hell, because I felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, whatever.
Passion and purpose, yeah.
And I went into a high burnout role. Like people around me had a shelf life of about 16 months to 2 years.
I thrived in that shit.
And I loved it because I was coming from a different perspective. They were like, oh my God, I can't deal with all these people's problems, whatever. But as somebody who has started 3 startup organizations, who has run nonprofits, I've taken a lot of chances on people. Like I've hired people that other people won't hire. I've given chances to my people often. I've invested lots of money. I've put lots of money in lots of people's pocket, because that's part of my mission. As a leader and as a worker, that's one of my missions. And I have been burned at least 50% of the time in doing that, right? At least 50% of the time in my own people. And I mean putting tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in somebody's pocket and have them do nothing, or have them complain constantly, right? And all this, the rules are oppressive. Everything's oppressive, oppression, right? As somebody who takes lots of chances on my people and gets burned regularly and doesn't get any credit for it, whatnot, and has dealt with every kind of quiet quitting, right? It's not always the work, and it's not always the environment, and it's not always the rules, and it's not always oppression, and it's not always all that stuff. So if we're going to say anything real tonight, if I'm going to say anything real tonight, is the easiest thing I could have done tonight was come in here and say, workers got it bad. It's all oppression. Everything is a white supremacy. Everything is this, that, and the other. That I'd get all kinds of applause for that. As somebody who has had to literally invest in people and hire people and train people and give people chances and opportunities that other people aren't giving them or whatnot, I can tell you that that's not the full story.
Right.
Yeah, Charles, jump in here, then I'm gonna answer that, Chris.
That's where I was going to. I was gonna say, man, that there's some people whose job is to like shovel shit. Like that's their job. Like that is what's putting food on their kids' plates. That is what's keeping them from being homeless. There are people's jobs whose job it is to scoop up roadkill, right? Like, I mean, listen, if you are in a privileged position to the point where you can make a choice to leave somewhere or go somewhere else, then I think we got to recognize the extreme privileged position that one is in. I'm not saying that there's not oppression, because it's everywhere. I think we've all been in. Every moment of your life is not promising you a level of comfort, and there's going to be moments and times where things are going to be uncomfortable. And I can really remember my dad struggling with this and losing the job. But I remember the aftermath of that, right? The aftermath was, well, rent didn't get made. Well, we got to go live with Auntie such and such. Well, him and Auntie such just got into an argument. So now we got to go here. So part of me is, if something is fulfilling those needs from that 9 to 5, sometimes you got to humble yourself. Like, and I say this not as somebody from necessarily a whole bunch of privilege, but that came from that worked a lot of menial jobs, that like had to just put up with it. You know what I'm saying? But what you doing on the other side to kind of, put yourself in a different position? I mean, there's right and wrong, and I get it. You feel me? But like, I think that there's something happening in the air right now where everybody feels like they're supposed to be comfortable all the time. You couldn't pull this shit in Michigan, in those damn in them car plants, man. But here's the thing: it's a market issue. If schools were a place where it was overcrowded, where it was so many people that wanted to be in that profession because we had such great schools, you couldn't be on that bullshit because somebody there ready to replace you. If there's 20 slots but 500 applicants, quiet quitting is not a thing. And so I think the education sector needs to look at what nursing did. And I think that nursing and teachers were in a very similar position for a while, and they did some things to elevate that. You know what I mean? And now nursing programs are some of the hardest programs to get into. You know what I mean? And I know everybody don't want to hear that, but it's a market issue.
Yeah. I think one of the things that most resonated for me during this conversation was, Chris, you're talking about how you've taken chances on our people, right? Like I've taken a lot of chances on our people, right? And I've been burned like to the point of embarrassment, like in terms of like, damn, how you come up in here and act like that, right? Like how do you come in here and you do that, right? How do you come like and as the leader of an organization, I'm just like, damn, I'm left baffled by some of the choices that our people make. It's not to say that other people don't make it, but it's magnified times 10 when you are a Black leader running an organization and you got your people that look like you that are behaving in that manner. But I will say this, even with that, I will still give a chance to my folks, right? So like I'm gonna keep getting burned. I'm gonna keep getting burned. I'm putting some butter on these burns, and I'm gonna keep giving chances to Black folks out here because I'm gonna find folks that are worthy of being able to embrace that challenge and do what's in the best interest of kids. So if you are a Black teacher and you're looking for a job, holla at me on Long Island. We'll get you out here. Let's go.
I know this might be looked at as random, but I do want to tell people, that whole idea of if you get burnt, you add butter to it. That is a bad decision. Like you're not cooking yourself. If you burn yourself, do not put butter on it. I know that's like a old school thing. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. Yeah. I just thought it was important to point that out.
Y'all with your fancy selves.
Out of all the things that you thought was important to point out, this dude right here, yo, gotta love him.
Hey, but this is important.
Quincy?
This is important as like if we are going to keep giving chances to our people, right? Like what message do you have to them about this type of thing? Because we are trying to help people grow and develop. People open doors for me when I didn't know anything. Mm-hmm. And the things that they taught me privately, like I remember a law firm that I worked in, a Black attorney pulling me aside and saying, brother, there's some things in here that and then boom, after that, what that conversation turned into was some rules I needed to know, like some things like, the last 2 people did not last here. This is so that type of thing, that behavior, that mentoring type of behavior, we're all committed to it. We're going to keep doing it. Yeah. So what I had though in that situation was eagerness to get ahead. So I listened and I did things like, I'm like, oh, cool. Is that how this works? Like, show me the road to the bag and you won't have to do anything other than that. Just show me the road to it. Right. So if we're going to keep doing that and we're committed to getting burned, at least, a portion of the time, like, because if it happens that way, but what can we tell people about like, man, you are in competition with other folks when you come in here. You can't like this do the minimum shit. Like, let that be something for your privileged friends to do, right? But don't think that that's you. I don't want to teach my kids that nonsense, right? I don't want to teach them to work on healthy boundaries. But, there's all this, some of this does start feeling generational. It starts feeling youngish in the mind. It starts feeling pampered. It starts feeling like over jargoned. Like people just are writing too many books, too many think pieces. They have too much time sitting around to develop concepts and think about stuff from all these crazy, like grow up. Like just because you burning incense and putting Shia on your wings and sitting at home writing all these books and all this type of stuff nonsense. Stop it. There are people living real lives and trying to get real jobs, trying to do real things in life. And whatnot, you're not helping. You got them 3 letters after your name. You writing these books. You come up with all these fancy concepts. Stop it. Just stop it. Teach people that we are in a race and people are eating our lunch, right? People are eating our lunch, and you can only scream racism and oppression so much. It's not like that's going to feed your ass in situations when you're in a race with people that are like outworking you, right? Like if you want to just not work, fine, right? If you just don't, that's cool. But developing whole movements around it and concepts around it, listen, like it gets tiring. It gets tiring. Anyways, that's why I started where I started with Charles, because I know Charles has hustled so much in life and has this thing about like he's writing a whole ass book. Like don't hustle.
Stop hustling backwards.
Stop hustling backwards or whatnot.
Yeah.
This to me feels like a show about hustling backwards in some ways, right?
It is because if you feel like somebody's gonna take care of you, but go ahead. My bad. I ain't mean to cut you off.
No, all good. I think Reef is gonna write a think piece about that book when you send it out. Because Reef, what's your theory on hustling backwards? You still hustling, right?
I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm looking forward to Cole's. Right. I'm looking forward to Cole's. Cole's book, but I mean, I agree with Chris as far as like some of this is generationally, but it's not new, right? Like there's a lot. I'm not gonna say every single youth, but throughout generations, there were young folks who said like, "Oh, I'm coming in. I want to be the CEO, right? Like I'm coming in. I've taught for a year now. I want to be the principal, or I did this for a little bit, and now I want to." You know what I mean? Like that's not a new phenomenon where folks don't quite understand the full picture, but feel like, well, I've studied this toe, and now I know like how an elephant, lives and operates and walks, right? Like because they've looked at that toe for a couple of years. So I think then added to all of this is like social media, which makes it even more, things catch fire and much faster, right? And again, I think it's a balance. I think it's sometimes there's a oppressive system that people are trying to take advantage of workers, and I think sometimes some folks have character flaws, and that's distributed evenly across humanity. There's some folks who have character flaws, no matter where they are, and I think it's just important. What I try to remind myself is like, yes, I know that sometimes I look at younger generation and I'm just like soft.
Soft as hell. Damn, I'm glad you said it.
Sometimes I think that, and then, but then also sometimes I look at it, I'm like, you know what? They're actually right on that piece. You know what I mean? But it's like, and sometimes I might not even want to admit it, right? Because it's like the boys who mad, like I paid my loan, so I don't want nobody to like, I don't want nobody else because I did it, and I don't want to be in that boat. Like, I paid.
Reef, we can part two of this shit right now. We can part two of this and put the screen on Chris because he be having some horrible ass takes.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
So hey, let's wrap it up into our closing thoughts though. On quiet quitting. Chris, we'll start with you.
Thank you for the show, guys. Listen, I've been talking about this a little bit just in general because I saw it pop up on social media, quiet quitting. I think it's a terrible, terrible movement and idea. If you go on TikTok and you look at the quiet quitting videos, there's almost like a celebration of anti-work. And what I would say to quiet quitters, honestly, is this. First of all, well, never mind. Let me just say this. Quit. Just quit. You're not good. You're not good anyways. No one wants you there. Just quit. Actually, like my workplace, your workplace, every workplace would be better if the people that just don't want to be there or don't want to work just weren't there. Go find your passion. Be successful elsewhere. Like there are 30,000 occupations in America's occupation guide. 30,000, like even more than that, I'm sure by now, actually. That you could. There are aquarium developers. There are people who do event planning. There are people like any party promotion, anything you want to do. Just don't be somewhere where you really don't want to be there and stay and do this quiet. I'm going to make it bad for myself and for everybody around me or whatnot. Bad workers are a cancer. They are toxic. They are bad for teams. Yes, there are some bad workplaces. So don't stay in one. Leave. Right, do something else. I know I'm saying this like it's easy and like blah blah blah, but you saying it like it's not possible too, right? Like it may not be so easy to leave, but it also is not so easy to just keep working a job that you hate, but you just go celebrate being lazy or celebrate like taking the business down, right? As somebody who has owned businesses, as somebody who has run organizations, as somebody who's been a worker for decades now, in many different contexts, in many different scenarios or whatnot. Leave. Like the reason I've had 46 jobs in my life is because I'm willing to leave and not make it bad for anybody else. So quit. You bad already. You're not good at it. Nobody likes you. Like everybody's secretly hates you. So just quit your job.
He said you're taking it too far.
You're taking it too far. Taking it too far. Reef.
I don't want to follow Chris with his crazy.
Yeah, you got to clean it up.
There's no cleaning that. There ain't enough Ajax in the world for all of that. But
Reef.
you know what?
People hate you.
Nobody likes you anyway. No, I mean, I think, it was a commercial back in the day, Chris. I don't know if the two youngins remember, but I don't remember what it was a commercial for. But the guy was on the stage like, what's my motivation? Right? Like he was asking other people, what was his motivation to do his job, right? And I just think,
what's my motivation? Yeah.
Oh, you do remember? Yeah. So it was and whatever that is, I think that's playing out in some ways. I do think that a lot of folks, the COVID, social media, bad working conditions, character flaws. I think all of this is like in a pot, and it's just more transparent again with social media. It allows it to have some real legs, centipede legs, and it's just ripping through. And I think people have to really understand like what is their motivation, what's their passion, what's their purpose. And I agree, Chris, it's not always easy to just transfer or do something else, or you go somewhere, right? Like just the simple things. You go somewhere else, you might not have insurance for the first whatever amount of months, right? Because you might not have that, because that might be the policy at this new role, right? And so what do you do, right? You have family or yourself and you need that, right? So it's all these complications that are around it. So I do think that I like what Cole said, and he often says, like, invest in yourself, finding time, hopefully, to continue to invest in yourself, get the education, try to be exposed. And this is what we can do for our next generation too. Expose them, make sure that they're aware, make sure that they have different opportunities, find out what they don't like early on, so that they know. That's part of education also, knowing what you don't like, what you wouldn't want to do, what doesn't bring out your passion. And I can tell you, my worst job, it was cleaning up the suburban train station. And it was a midnight shift. And all my jobs that I hated, it was my summer. And, while I was in college, it was like coming home, working, and all of those jobs I did not like. And I had friends who that was their job. That was their job, because I would come home and they would be like, yo, they hiring, come on down. I'm just like, yo, you do this every day. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. And they were like, well, this is the job, right? Like, but I was just envisioning something else. So I think finding the space that you want to be in is absolutely critical. And leadership got to know also working conditions and how to inspire, right? Like you can't force someone to do it, but part of your role should be something about, if you're a leader, if you're in that kind of seat, something about inspiring, something about helping folks, something about making sure that they're successful. But I'm just not down with the quiet or loud quitting. Just like, especially if you're in serving people, I'm not with it. So
before y'all two jump in, please say y'all two in your closing thoughts. Please say your worst job in your closing thoughts, and people in the comments, put your worst job in the comments. I want to see what people's worst job was. But anyways, go ahead.
And before Charles jumps in with his final thoughts, please like and share this. Y'all be doing us a disservice on this, and I don't like it. I'm feeling a way about
y'all
not
our
liking.
Listeners quiet quitting? Are our listeners?
I think they are. Like I feel like they're quiet quitting on us, bro.
I mean, they're quiet quitting on Ray, not the rest of us. They there for it. They rocking with us.
Ray shows do numbers.
I will say Charles, my worst job, hardest job, to be real with you, was McDonald's when I was 16 years old. Like you couldn't stop moving. They turned the stuff so they could always watch you. And if you was a boy, they put you in the back and cooking, and you had to empty out the grease and all that. But it just wasn't it was a difficult job. I did not love it, and I did not quiet quit. I loud quit like a mug. Anyway, let me tell you this. I love quiet quitters. I fucking love y'all. Like, because I will always be able to get work. Here's the thing, man. Like, this in some parts of life is a zero-sum game. It's like there are times when you do have to compete. And if we just gonna continue to like raise folks, and it ain't just a Generation Z thing, there are older people that's trying to live their best life and don't want to have to work. If you work for somebody else, if you come work with me, you know, just know I work fast. I expect a certain level of quality, and you're not gonna have much supervision. I need you to be able to work autonomously. If you work somewhere else and it's somebody else's company and they say COVID is over and I need you back in the office and it's a private company, then guess what? You got to either take your ass back in the office or you got to go find another job, or you can go try to start your own thing. And this is the thing when you start your own thing, you got to be good because the market will get you up out of here. But here goes some free game for people as we talk about this, right? If you're one of these people in these jobs, right, there's a term called managing up. And I know people will be like, you shouldn't have to do that and blah, blah, blah. But this is some of the best advice I ever got from a manager. I came in for supervision. He said, it's not my job to prepare our agenda for supervision. You prepare the agenda. And in that agenda, if you want that promotion, ask what needs to happen for me to get that promotion. Or like, ask me, you know, what do I do well? Where can I like advance? Is there some type of training that I can have? Like, you have to start having these, you know what I'm saying, conversations. And you got to really understand that concept, man, because you are not a child anymore. It is nobody else's job to take care of you. It is nobody else's job to make sure that you are happy. It ain't nobody else's job to feed your kids. We can talk about what this country should do and maybe sometimes what it can do, but I'm just going to tell you, man, a lot of people that's in this movement have not felt the true ugliness of what this world has to offer. And I feel bad for those people because when it comes, they're not going to be able to roll with them punches, man. As somebody who owns a business, I hear no so much. I fail so much. You cannot have a rigid spirit. You cannot be brittle in that sense, man. Not rigid, but brittle. You can't be brittle in that because it'll break you. And if you raising kids in this new society, I'm telling you, if you raise that kid to think about greatness in some term, about how to work hard and how to like create for themselves and how to like build themselves up, and be the master of their own greatness, I promise you they will be eating these little kids' foods out here, man. And lazy kids, I don't want to say lazy.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Lazy as hell.
Ornery kids turn to ornery adults, fam. So if you still used to your mama picking up your clothes, then you're gonna be a 40-year-old man looking for your lady to pick up your clothes. And that's on us, man. And so that's my thing about quiet quitting. I love you because this is a competition and I will always be able to get work, even if I hate the job, because sometimes that's what life requires, you selfish bastard.
So
this is a violent night.
This was definitely a violent week. So the worst job I've ever had was selling dope. Selling dope was the worst job I ever had. It was hella dangerous, and it left my spirit uneasy. Right, like I saw the destruction that I was doing in my community, and thank God I saw it in the time frame in which I saw it, because it limited the amount of damage that I did to my community. So that was the worst job that I ever had. Next, my closing thought. So my closing thought is totally not, it has nothing to do with quiet quitting, but it has everything to do.
We knew that. We knew that.
All right, cool. It has everything to do with Biden and the student loan forgiveness, right? So some people got $10,000. Some Pell Grant recipients got an additional $10,000. I'm not eligible for any of that shit, unfortunately. However, I celebrate the folks that are eligible for it. I celebrate the folks that are getting this win. I celebrate the folks that will have their loans paid off, because I may not be getting my loans paid off, but I did have the privilege and honor of being able to purchase houses in order to get that home equity and do all those other things. So like my payback came in a different way. But shout out to those folks that are eligible, that are eligible to get this loan forgiveness. I'm celebrating with y'all, and I'm happy for all of y'all. You will not hear no hate come this way, because hey, I'm celebrating y'all, right? This is a victory for everybody. You guys have been listening to another episode of the 8 Black Hairs podcast. We'll see you next week.